everyone out there, and welcome to another session of Mita's Deep Dive Express Modules. My name is Caleb Tice from Canna Owners, and I'm going to be your host today. The Express Modules are being brought to you by 420 Collections, our gracious sponsor that has allowed us to put this program on and give this wealth of information for everyone out there. 420 Collections includes 420 Medibles, which is their deliciously potent edibles available at dispensaries throughout the great state of Arizona. And they also have 420 Skincare. That is their CBD infused topical line, which is available throughout the country. So we have two experts here on our topic today. A very, very important aspect of the cannabis industry. We are going to be doing a deep dive into payment solutions. So you'll find out by the end of the session today of why payment solutions is such a challenge to overcome, and the two individuals we have a solution that they have available for the industry. So I want to give them a chance to introduce themselves. We have Miss Lauren Murphy and Miss Jillian Christie.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Caleb and Mita.
Yep. You want to give a little background about yourselves, about what you do in the industry?
Sure. My name's Lauren, obviously. I'm the CEO of Vault 36. So we do everything with payments. We take a little bit of a different approach in terms of obviously the compliance piece, but we take a heavy approach also on the marketing piece of it to make it more successful. My personal experience is really heavily in high-risk payments for the last 10 plus years. And high-risk payments is really any industry where there's a lot of regulation, or there's a high risk for disputed charges either on credit card or ACH. And then the last 3 years is when we dove deeply into the cannabis industry to figure out how do we provide a super easy payment system to use, but also in a compliant way that's long lasting. So we feel that we have found that, and then also preparing ourselves for federal legalization when that happens to still be a viable solution at that time.
Awesome. And I'm Jillian Christie. My background within the industry has been the last year really getting to know your consumers, your patients, and the merchants out there, and what is actually needed in the industry in itself. Because there's not a lot of mainstream tools in the cannabis industry's fingertips. And my background stems from a lot of, 15, 16 years of a lot of big brand type community centered and building companies like Red Bull and NBC and all, those types of brands that are building a lifestyle, if you will, and kind of bringing that into the cannabis world. Because it's lacking here. We don't really have that, especially in the tech piece of cannabis, right? I mean,
Yeah.
The cannabis industry definitely is a community, and it's an awesome community. And we want to help nurture that through our services and our solutions, and we want to make it feel safe and all the fun things for your consumers and your merchants. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've seen that the evolution of the cannabis industry has been like a bunch of little mini communities that are growing into that bigger community that we can see with both the additional activism and just it's more of a force than it has been in the past. And definitely, Lauren, your background being in highly regulated payments, it seemed like a very natural evolution coming in of seeing a place that burgeoning industry, something's new, and it's a problem that is across the board that you found a solution for. So yeah, definitely. Thank you for that. This is going to be a fun discussion and getting that perspective. And I really, I'm going to touch a bit more on what you were talking about, Jillian, of understanding that customer and really starting there. I think that's hit on some good stuff that I want to talk about there for sure. So we want to kind of start at a real high level here. So for anybody out there who doesn't know, cannabis is still a federally illegal substance. There are state programs that provide for a legal framework within that state, but because of that dichotomy that is unique to cannabis, like no other industry, there are issues when it comes to cannabis businesses and banking. So you want to touch a bit on kind of that's sort of the playing field when looking at what Alt 36 got started. So explain that for us a little bit.
Yeah. So it's definitely a different industry. So you may be new to the cannabis industry and think, oh, I can just go get a bank account, and just normal business activities are just not that way. And I think it's very hard too for even these big executives coming from big box stores, such as like your like Overstock or Wendy's. I've seen them join some of the companies, and they're trying to use the same tactics, whether it's marketing, payments, and it doesn't work because it doesn't operate that way. So with banking, unfortunately, you have to make sure that you are using a cannabis-friendly bank. Otherwise, you will end up getting shut down, or you get put on some sort of list, with the banks in terms of not being allowed to open up a bank account. And that's really, I think, for the safety. It's the banks themselves are trying to provide a safe place for you to put your money, while it is still federally illegal, but there's a lot of compliance that they have to do per the federal government and the guidelines that they have to follow. So you want to make sure that you're selecting a bank that supports that. And then the payments is a whole nother beast of its own. They're not typically the banks that are holding your money. They'll work with companies like us to process your payments, but you won't typically go directly to the bank to have them process your payment. With us, we work with cannabis-friendly banks in all different states, and we support right now 8 different states that we are able to operate in. Mm-hmm. And so we underwrite you, and so we're able to do that because of the relationships that we have, the compliance policy that we have. We're almost a layer, an additional layer for the banks. The banks that you have an account at, they're doing compliance on your deposits. We're doing the compliance on the payments. Okay. We do all of really the same type of reporting that a bank has to do with the federal, with FinCEN. And so we're registered as a money services business. Mm-hmm. And what that really all means to the merchant, it's a lot of complex stuff to understand, but it means your money is safe, and it means that you can accept payments with no issue. And that's a huge thing that should be considered, especially with just looking back into the last couple of years with Ease, the CEO pleading guilty to bank fraud, and the 2 consultants, sentenced to prison for bank fraud. The government will make an example of you, and you don't want to be that. Or on a smaller level, Lynx, they did gift cards with credit cards, and that's a violation of these. Credit cards are a big no-no. But they held millions of dollars of merchant money, and that's money that they need to pay their bills, but they thought it was compliant. So, I mean, in a nutshell of all my rambling, it's do your homework. Just because someone says that they're compliant doesn't mean that. A lot of people use the buzzwords on their site, but do your research and, make sure. The main question is does your processing bank know my business, and do they know that I'm a cannabis business? That's really kind of where you want to start, because if they do, then that's a good step forward. And our perspective is that ACH right now, which is similar to Venmo, that's really the most compliant payment method that you can use.
Gotcha. Okay, so it certainly is a little bit different of knowing that you can't just go into a bank, that even if they are able to hold your funds and you find one of those banks that are now willing to work with cannabis companies, which extensive reporting, additional compliance requirements, higher fees, all of those things that are ultimately in place. And it's unique because we're coming from a market where this used to be entirely black market. All of these funds were none of it was tracked. So it's basically the banks are trying to get comfortable of how do we track the funds while ensuring that it's not going towards criminal enterprises or things where it was going before.
Sure.
I mean, banks have rules that they have to follow to be able to stay in business, just like everybody else does. So it's really, really unique. And I think that I'm really glad you brought that up, that there's been a lot of sort of workarounds or backdoor sort of methods, different things that whether there's somebody right there telling you that it's the wrong thing to do, it's going to catch up to you. If your business is successful, you're going to get big enough to where you're going to have some exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You want to have digital payments because it creates efficiency within your business. You can accept more payments. Cash is super expensive, as we all know, to operate, and it's inefficient. So you're searching for those digital payment options, but yeah, definitely do your homework on whoever you're consulting with.
Yeah, for sure. So, which you lead into my next question on basically the alternative, and how most of the businesses in cannabis have been operating for a number of years is just, they're all cash. Like that is the option, is cash and cash. What are some of the challenges? I mean, you mentioned one just about efficiency. What are some other challenges that an all cash business faces?
I mean, yeah, there's so many things that go into efficiency, but it's expensive. It can cost you anywhere from 20 to 25% of your overall sales volume.
Wait, 20, just take a second to think about that. 20 to 25% of your sales volume.
Yeah, it's a lot. But you're not, but the tricky thing is that it's not all just one provider that's taking that cost. It's your security, the cameras that you have to have, the security at the front, the amount of time you have to, like, counting the cash 5 times, you have to hire those employees to do that, internal theft, external theft. And so there's just so many aspects, insurance, if you can get that. And there's so many different aspects that go into that comprised fee. Which is why it's a little difficult to understand. Like it's not just coming from one provider versus a payment method, like a digital payment method. You're just getting charged that one fee by that one provider, but it's definitely a lot of different services that you have to incorporate into your business, which is costly.
Yeah, it's a lot of those hidden costs, because usually you see on, it's a 2% processing fee or something that you look at, or even just cash handling fee of 1%. When you go to the bank, I mean, it's coming with $100,000. It's $1,000 of a fee just for the right to you to be able to come and bring cash. So it adds up. It adds up, and it's been a cost of doing business, and which is why we know that there has to be solutions to this. That is business, of where you run into something that this just doesn't make sense. So what can we do to try to fix that? So there's been, I want to highlight for the aspiring social equity applicants out there of what are some of the non-compliant ways that you've seen. Like, I want to get a little specific about some of the things that these are the words that people out there should raise a red flag. It should prompt them to want to ask some more questions.
Sure. The most common one is credit cards, or even a debit card. So how we connect is similar to when you set up your Venmo account. There's a bank connection service. You put in your username, password for your online banking, and that's giving us access to use your account for you to make purchases. And that's on the ACH method. The methods that are quicker than that are credit cards, and credit cards are not allowed by the card brands. In order for them to be allowed, there has to be what's called a merchant category code. So every single business that's set up with a credit card processing account has this, it's like a 4 or 5 digit code, and that just tells you what type of business that is. Mm-hmm. So what so many providers have done is they've said, hey, I can set you up with your credit card processing account as long as you're only processing $2,500 a month, or you get this allotment within this overall pool. You can process this with credit cards, and it's enticing because the increased average ticket can be anywhere from 70 to 80% because the customer's paying on credit. So why wouldn't it be? But the problem is that there's such a high risk of those funds getting taken, frozen. There's been proven fact over the last couple of years of that happening. So you're running the risk there. And unfortunately, it is kind of like an insurance policy. When you're signing up as an insurance policy, you're like, oh, gosh, I gotta pay this premium, but you don't really know what's going to happen until it happens, and you don't really feel that on your bottom line until all of a sudden that system got shut down. So they're being more aggressive with shutting them down. So anything related to credit cards and sometimes even debit, there are cashless ATMs, which is a competitor of ours, but which is another solution. And it's kind of a gray area because in order for it to process in a compliant way, every ATM network has to underwrite that merchant that they're okay with that merchant processing on their network. And there's several different ATM networks. Not every solution has done that. So you see a lot of these cashless ATMs, they'll be up and running in a certain merchant and then they get shut down. So there's a few that have done it, but there's also some that haven't because it's easy to get set up. It's quick money for them to make on you. And so I would really steer clear of anything related to a card because technically that also that 16-digit number on the card brand owns that. So if it's not going on the ATM network and you have to input your card, it's somehow going on the Visa MasterCard network, which is masking it as a different solution. And you don't want to do that because that's exactly what happened to Ease. So
yep, that's fraud. There's no way that's the big F word. So
yeah. So I mean, our belief is ACH and cash right now are the two compliant ways to accept payment. There's different things that we're working on to really our vision for next year. But once we have that, we'll share that. But it's ACH and cash right now are really your only legitimate solutions.
Yep. Some of the questions to definitely ask is how is it processed? What is it? Certainly, if I got an allotment and said, "Oh, well, you can do this amount of it," but anything over than that just is. I don't even know how to respond to that. That just that gives me the weirdest feeling possible of like that just has shady written all over it. Just you need to ask those questions. How is it being processed? What bank is it is it through affiliated banks? Do they know what you're doing? Is it located in the U.S.? I know that that's one of the big ones that I've seen of bank processing overseas, and it's the person that you're speaking to should be able to answer these questions quickly. They should have that and be able to lay it out of why they are compliant. If someone in this realm can't answer a question like that of why they're compliant or how it follows the rules, I mean, there you go. There's your answer right there.
I think a key word to all this, just to simplify it for everyone, is transparency. If the provider coming to you trying to sell you their service or come into your company as an aided operator, if they can't be super transparent with you, or you're asking the questions that you just asked, all the right questions, and they can't answer them, or they say, yeah, but we don't talk about that. They're trying to pull one over on you, because we do talk about that. We're very transparent in this industry because we want to see it grow, we want to see it thrive, we want to see it for years to come. So if someone comes to you with that shadiness, just know they don't have your best interests at heart, because definitely you want to grow your business just like any other business owner.
Yep. And you certainly cannot use the defense of, oh, I didn't know or I wasn't sure. I mean, it's you have the responsibility to ask those questions, and in this heavily regulated industry of making sure that you are making those right calls. Yep.
Totally.
Okay, so there's a lot of different. We've touched on those non-compliant, some of the things that others have been doing out there. So I want to take this as an opportunity to kind of pivot in. We talked a bit. I want to hear how Alt 36 was launched. You touched on it, but I really want everyone out there to know of how it's different and what are some of those additional benefits, those value adds that they can get from having a compliant payment solutions provider.
Okay, yeah, sure. So we launched about, I think it was almost 4 years ago. We have morphed a little bit along the way. Initially, we were thinking, oh, B2B, that's where we want to focus. For sure, there's a huge need there. But then we're like, no, we need to stop the cash from coming in, and then really capitalize on all of these consumers, because there's so much more value that we can bring to them, and then also in turn bring that value to the merchant with all the different data that we can provide, increased average ticket, increased spend frequency. But even more exciting, in terms of outside of the compliance, that's really just great to have. But an exciting part, I think, is really where the marketing and loyalty comes into play. And that's something that Jillian kind of that heads up, and she helps strategize. And it's really about bringing that partnership full circle. And I think the marketing and loyalty aspect is something that definitely sets us apart from the competitors.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, having the compliance piece, like Lauren mentioned, is a must for sure. But when you are looking, I mean, and this kind of goes across the board, generally speaking, when you look to partner with any service for your store, you want to make sure you're aligned with them on a values base. You want to make sure that what they're going to bring to the table as far as those values are concerned are things that are going to meet your needs, and that align with your vision for the future of your company. And there is such a thing as just bringing on a service partner who essentially is just that. It's a service. You use it, period. And then there's bringing on an actual business partner, and that's exactly how that we at Alt36, that's how we approach every single merchant partner, is that we are in business with them, aiding them in growing their business. And we care passionately about that. And we care passionately about providing their consumers the greatest experience possible. And we do that directly with our end users. And because we do that with them, it then comes full circle with our merchant partners as well. So keeping the end users, best interest in heart, we're by that alone, we're helping the merchants exponentially. And also just by being able to provide your customers and patients a compliant solution, payment solution that makes it easier for them to purchase, simple, they feel safe, all these things, that alone is providing them a greater experience than what they may have had in the past. And also with retention, as far as loyalty is concerned, and consumer retention, I mean, it's just science that consumers are going to go back to a place that they had the better experience at. And the better experience is typically, especially in terms of where we work within the industry, is convenience. They want it to be convenient. It's a huge word and feeling that that definitely plays a role in the loyalty to any given store, and or maybe it's a franchise of sorts or brand, have you, like whatever that may look like. And then just another way to build on that loyalty and retention is, and I kind of mentioned this, but just to kind of get a little more detailed, is to really do your homework. I know Lauren mentioned it too, but really do your homework when you're looking at the different solutions that you have in front of you. Are they more of a partner or more of a service? And do they, bring added value to your business? Are they helping you with marketing efforts? Do they provide, your end consumers with incentives beyond what you're providing them or offering them? Are they driving traffic to your store through those types of efforts? And are they a dedicated business partner? Do they passionately care about your growth and, the experience of your consumers? Or do they just care that they want to get in as many merchants as possible? So it's really, I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer, because you want to be able to lean on your service providers as if they are partners, and you want to feel like you are in business with them and they have your best interests at heart.
Definitely. I think loyalty is a huge piece in tying that in with payments, the ability to track points. I mean, you also hit on the data aspect of being able to see and get a better and clearer picture of who is your customer. What's more about them? Do they buy particular products on particular days? How effective are sales? Is this something I'm pushing out? I want to do a discount, and I can clearly track of how many people that brought in, and then be able to see how much they spent. My mind just keeps going and going. I love it. I'm an analyst at heart. But that's the difference, is having all of those extra value adds versus it just being a bill that you pay each week. Do you have a couple of examples of maybe like some like a marketing? Let's say that you had a new client come on, and maybe just an example of something that you helped to implement to them that they hadn't seen or that they hadn't thought of.
Yeah, totally. We, a lot of times with our new merchant partners, we want to get them up and running as quickly as possible. And that we have a quick turnaround as soon as everything's approved and put in place. We can get them accepting payments within a couple days. So once that's already happening, and it is a new merchant, like you mentioned, maybe it's a new area that now we are also a part of. We're going to start, we're going to build an incentive piece for that new onboarding of that merchant partner. So that in that sense too, we're kind of almost showing our merchants that we need to work together to make this a success for both of us. So when, for example, so your question, for example, we have done this out in California with a couple different amazing merchants that we love, is we have offered their end users, when they sign up for the first month, that they will get 2% cash back on all their purchases. And this does a lot of things, right? It definitely makes me want to sign up. I mean, I would want to sign up anyways, but it's that added incentive. And now it's making me, want to come back to your store, because why would I go anywhere else? I mean, I'm going to get cash back. This is great in the form of credits on the app. So it starts building that loyalty already right off the bat. It builds that retention almost immediately. And, it helps the merchant. Now they're processing more digitally, and they're spending less time counting cash, like Lauren had mentioned, spending less time and energy counting, reconciling, and managing cash. So it's a win all around. And I think that was your question, Caleb.
That's exactly what it is. That's building that immediate loyalty. And you're right. I mean, that's why you see all of the points and rewards and other things in the traditional credit card market. That's why they're there, is because of loyalty. You get somebody to come in the door 3 times, you've got a lifetime customer. I mean, provided, of course, you don't give them the worst service ever, but that's usually what it takes. So that making that first impression, and I think that really showing for the merchant of, like, we're coming in and we want to grow together. Your growth is good for us, so we can show additional merchants how well we treat you, and that we're going to be able to get additional accounts. I mean, that's what it is creating that ecosystem of positive service.
And to your point, when you said as long as you give them great service, I think you said, but one surefire way to lose loyalty is to upset your consumers, right? So and that could be even unintentionally by accepting a non-compliant solution. Now you're exposing them to this unsafe piece of your business. And, and again, like you said, you don't have the excuse, oh, I didn't know. But now you're putting them in that situation, and no one wants that.
Yep. That's, you're definitely going to lose a customer very quickly. Think about when customers are upset that you don't have their item in stock. The ability to pay one way and then not be able to the next time. I know that I've lost customers that way before. It's even something as simple as an ATM being out of cash, and then people leave and then they don't ever come back. So
Yeah.
it's those sort of things that it's always an opportunity to help to continue to cement that loyalty.
That's funny. Yeah, our consumer support actually hears, even though it has nothing to do with us, we hear a lot of the complaints, and we'll always share. That's part of it too. Like we'll share that back with the merchant, and like any kind of bad service or even compliment that doesn't have to do with us too. We'll share that back to them.
That's helpful.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I was going to mention is as well, in Arizona specifically, as we've now turned over to recreational sales and even just the industry in general, more and more people are getting interested as a consumer. And it can be very intimidating to go into a dispensary. I have no idea what to say. It's like going to Starbucks for the very first time. Like, I'll just take a coffee. Like, I have no idea. And so the other thing that we also add as a part of these marketing strategies is we have a street team concept where on these new onboarded merchants, and then also on a more regular basis with existing merchants, because there's new customers all the time, you know, arming them with a piece of information before they go into the dispensary with our street team representatives and saying, hey, have you heard of Alt 36? And we arm them with a piece of information so they feel more confident going in the store and like, oh, I'll pay with Alt 36. And so then their guard has come a little bit down. So it kind of has a dual effect. One, educating them on how to pay in a more convenient way. And then secondly, now they feel more confident going in the store and they may purchase more just based off that.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's a major piece to our puzzle. And it kind of also sheds major light onto what we find so valuable and, you know, our principles and what we value for the industry in general. And especially for new people into the game who want to come into the game is education. Education for us about everything and to everyone is so important that we're not, you know, when we are going out there with our street team, we're educating them on how to sign up for Alt 36 and what it is and how safe and easy it is to use and free all the time for the end users. They never pay a cent. Of course, we're going to educate them on that because we want them to feel comfortable on how to even use this solution. Mm-hmm. However, we're also educating the consumers on the industry too. Like Lauren mentioned, you know, as more and more states are opening up recreation, I mean, the anxiety that I've personally witnessed of some of these people going into a store for the first time is, you know, it's sad because you don't want them to feel you know, discouraged or whatnot. You want them to feel as comfortable as possible. And there's so many merchants out there who do such a great job at that in the first place, is really making people feel comfortable and welcoming them in. But we see ourselves as, you know, an aid in that initiative as well. So education, and then, you know, that's more on the end user side, but with merchants and new merchants entering in, we believe so passionately about educating them on compliance issues, especially like right up front, because we see so many people just get, for lack of a better term, bamboozled into accepting these other forms that are just completely exposing their business to really not great things, including, you know, being shut down, just, you know, convictions.
Other bank accounts, it could impact their personal bank accounts. I know I've seen that before. It wasn't just business accounts, it was then impacting their family and their ability to do things on that side of it. And yeah, I see the service and the value that Alt 36 brings in that capacity to give the consumer something that is familiar to them in a world that's so completely unfamiliar. It's culture shock. It is. That's why the cannabis community is a subculture, in that if you're in it, you know the lingo, you understand it. Otherwise, it's the same thing as going into a different country with a different culture of you don't know, everything is new. And if I can have an ability of somebody that bright smiling face that is going to give me some information that's going to help this to feel more like a regular everyday transaction that I was doing in a different store, is going to just help to create a better experience, which then creates the loyalty that you're going to then keep seeing them, and then they spend more, and you just see the snowball effect effect out there of I was just taking care of those customers.
Right, that's right.
Okay, so what are some of the things? I mean, we kind of touched a little bit about like what they're buying and things. Do you want to bring us up to speed on some of the different insights that you can provide your merchants about the customers by having that payment solution?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and we've been mentioning those here and there. So have you, Caleb. But you're gonna learn so much more, especially when you partner with a company that you know, really finds the value in this knowledge as well. And you know, those are things like, when are your consumers spending? How frequent are they spending? How much are they spending? Are they increasing their spend? At what time of year are they spending most? What marketing campaigns that either your store is implementing or maybe we're providing and offering at any given point in time, which ones are effective and which ones do your consumers really, really respond to? Because it's not a cookie cutter, it's not, you know, all across the board. There's just different client. I mean, it's like within any industry, there's different clientele, different consumer bases, all throughout, you know, in different geographies and things like that. So we help pinpoint that piece for our merchants. So and it's not just, oh great, we have the data, now we know these things, cool, what do we do with them? We then, it's like like I said, we're very invested business partner. We then say, hey, you know, this we collect the data and we also interpret it and help them you know, kind of implement the learnings from it. So now you can have a more targeted marketing campaign around X, Y, and Z, because it was really effective, and it was really effective with your main consumer base at this time of year. So definitely do it here, you know. So yeah, there's just so many. It's at the bottom, you know, the bottom line of all this is you're learning the spending habits of your consumers. And I mean, in any industry, that's invaluable, because you're, you know, that's essentially what you want to know, because you're selling to them. So lots of good info. And yeah, that's
That's it in a nutshell.
It can help you plan different times a year. I mean, that's really what I found with any of the businesses, and for all of the aspiring social equity applicants, that first year in business, that is learning. That is learning your customer, learning what works, learning what doesn't. And that allows you to then get into the planning stages of knowing, okay, like that's how I found out on seasonality. And I've seen that curve now, same general curve for the past 8-9 years of this is how the market goes and this is how sales are going to go. And you learn that by having those tools in place and having the reporting. And I think it's, you hit on it, Julian, of interpreting. Numbers are just numbers until you find it. It's, what is this going to let me do? What is this telling me? So it's key and crucial next step when it comes to that, versus I've seen a lot of just like your daily reports. Here you go. Here's the report. Here's the info dump. What does that tell you?
Oh, totally. And there's so many, I mean, goodness, there's so many companies that will, you know, tout about the data they collect for you. And like you said, Caleb, they'll just, here you go, here's the data. Okay, cool. What do I do with this? You know, and so the interpretation, like you said, is key. I think then, you know, that third piece is the support. You know, we support them in executing on these learned behaviors, and what, you know, not only what that means, the interpretation piece, but how can we now capitalize on that with you, for you. And so sometimes that looks like us actually, you know, offering an incentive to their consumers at a certain time of year or a certain time of the month or around a certain brand. So yeah, it's definitely, it's the critical thinking piece, it's the caring piece, and it's the human touch, right? So it's like, who do you want to partner with? Someone who's like, hey, here you go, this computer found this number for you. Bye. You know, or like, or do you want to be with the humans that want to make it work for you and want to see you thrive?
Yep. Definitely. So, so we got a few minutes here. I want to just kind of give an overview of the payment solution to what you have, just to get an idea for like the customer of what it would look like for them, and then what are some of the systems that you guys integrate with, and then we'll go ahead and wrap things up today.
Sure. So the consumer, it works just like Venmo, if you're asking about their experience, which was really a goal of ours because we wanted to mimic a behavior that they're already used to, and then a sign-up process that they're already used to. And so, in terms of us over competition of same exact transaction flow, our user adoption is a lot higher because of the ease of use and ease of sign-up. Most bailout occurs during the sign-up when it's too complicated. If it takes a couple days to get registered, or if you have to put in your social security number, there's really no need for that. And all of our compliance allows for us not to require that. So works just like Venmo, and from a consumer, that's really all you would really want is for it to be super easy.
Yeah, definitely.
What was the other question?
On what are some of the systems that you integrate with?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we have an API that any system can integrate to. So we do have a plugin for any WordPress site. So there's really no integration that needs to happen. There's download instructions where if they have a WordPress site with their products, they just put this plugin in there, and it takes probably less than a day to implement, and then they're ready to go. And then in terms of the point of sales, right now we're in talks with a number of point of sales in the California area, but at this time we don't have any fully integrated. At the same time, most payment systems that are being used right now are not actually integrated. The ones that are, for some reason, aren't getting used as much. But the ability for any point of sale to integrate to us is extremely easy and takes less than a week.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. No, I was pretty familiar with APIs, and certainly it sounds like with the partnership is finding what's going to work, and by having that ability that you ladies are able to kind of get it to communicate in the way that it needs to.
Totally. And in terms of integrating also, and kind of just touching back on that piece of providing the greatest value and convenience for their end users, and for them, really, for the merchants, really, it always just connects still, is, we're integrated with, it can be really hard to have your own in-house delivery.
Yeah. Sorry, I had spaced on that.
It's almost like a whole other business. So you have this brick and mortar that you are just grinding on, keeping alive and making it thrive. And then delivery and pickup can be a whole beast of its own. So it's very challenging sometimes to have an in-house solution to that. So we do partner with a phenomenal delivery service, Superb Delivery, and we're integrated right into their payment point of sale online, so that when, and they are accepted at dozens of merchants in the Valley, in Arizona. And so, so when you're going to make your order, say you're picking up or accepting delivery, you can pay right then and there online, which is really convenient, because it doesn't happen. That's not a thing. If you're new to the industry, that's not a thing currently. And it sounds interesting because, DoorDash and all those things are quite prevalent, but because of the nuance and everything we've just talked about, you can understand why it hasn't been a thing yet. So I think that's one of our major pulls and integrations is making that piece, that ancillary piece, even that much more convenient. So.
Yep, definitely. And I know there was big news in at least on the Apple Store, and I know that it looks like things we continue to get news every day about sentiment, and just the environment is changing. So and it's because of people in the industry pushing forward changes, finding solutions, and helping to get it to transparency and legitimacy. I mean, that's what everyone in the cannabis industry has been doing for the last 20 some odd years since California in '96, is really pushing towards legitimacy. And Alt 36 is another step along that journey. So, all right. Well, I want to give an opportunity. We're wrapping up here. I want to give each of you just an opportunity on a sign off. And if you have any advice for the aspiring social equity applicants that are out there, now's the time.
right. Well, thank you for having us. I guess in terms of advice, I mean, like you said, this whole segment is to also show that it isn't just about the licensing, where you can participate in the cannabis industry, but as a business owner myself, I mean, it is incredibly hard to own your own business and start your own business in addition to being in cannabis. So you're going to come up so many struggles, you're going to want to quit, but just don't. And I would also say if a deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. The good ones take longer, and there's typically a process, particularly with investment. There are so many people, investment deals, an established investor will typically have a process of due diligence and review. Make sure you're doing your research on everybody that you're working with, and just don't give up.
Yeah. And I guess my piece of advice is just kind of echoing that transparency piece again. Just, kind of keeping it top of mind when you are building out every aspect of your business. How transparent is it? The more transparent it is, the more compliant it really is. So that's super important. And also, I lost my train of thought. Caleb, hold on, it's coming back.
You got it.
Oh, I was also going to say, keep in mind again when you're building out every aspect of your company, to keep sustainability in mind too. Like, how far do you want to go? This isn't a short game, right? Like, it's not like the quick, the fast, the let's make a quick buck only to be shut down tomorrow game. This is the game. For personally, as a business owner, you want to think of the long haul. You want to be in it for the long haul, because that means you're winning, and when you care about this cannabis community, you want it to win too. So you want it to be as sustainable as possible. And the only way to do that is to do it right and compliantly, legitimately, all the things.
Definitely. All right. Awesome. Thank you, ladies. I really appreciate your time today. Thank you out there to everyone viewing this. Want to send out another thank you to our sponsor, 420 Collections. We are very grateful for you letting us put this information out there and educate all of the aspiring applicants on all of the different opportunities. So until next time, everybody stay safe out there. Thank you.
Thanks, Caleb. See ya. Thanks, Rita.